As an indie author, one of the biggest decisions you'll need to make for each book you publish is how you're going to print it. There's basically two options. You can print offset, or what many people call traditional printing, or you can use a print on demand service like Amazon KDP, ingramspark, or many of the other platforms that are available to you. Today, I want to walk you through 10 different variables that you need to consider when you're making that decision. So let's get into it. By the way, my name is Travis Peterson. I am an award-winning children's book author. I'm also a book designer for children's book authors, and I am an author coach. So if you need help with whether it's the book design or the indie publishing process, you can reach out to me at launchmissioncreative.com. And in fact, I'm writing a book for authors right now. In fact, I finished writing it. I'm editing it myself before I pass it on to a professional editor. And you can access the introduction to that chapter to get a little taste of what the book is about. And the title, by the way, is Indie Author's Dozen. And so you can go to indieauthorsdozen.com to access that first chapter. And if you provide feedback for that chapter, you'll be given the option to access even more chapters. So it's just my way of sort of inviting you into the beta team for that book. And so let's get right into it, because I really want to share the differences between offset printing and print on demand. And it may matter too much which print on demand service you use. There are a lot of differences between KDP, which is provided by Amazon, and ingramspark. And those two platforms are, like I said, very different, but they come with their pros and cons. I'm not really going to address that too much in this video. I might in a future one, but I really just want to compare print on demand as a whole to offset printing. The very first variable that I'm going to give you is quality, because this is kind of the one that most people are concerned about. And I think it's something that we need to address right away. First of all, with offset printing, by the way, what I mean by offset printing is you're printing in large quantities from a traditional printing house, which is usually overseas. You can do it in your home country, but most people go to like China or somewhere like that to have their books printed. Personally, I've been using a printer in Lithuania that I'm happy with. Prices can be very different. I pay a little bit more to print outside of China, to print in another country, and you would pay a lot more to print in the US, for example. So prices can vary, and you need to do your own research on where you would print your offset printed books. But the quality of offset printing is so much better than you would get with print on demand. There are a lot of options that I'll explain later that adds to that quality, but just the whole process is better and lends itself to better books than you can get with print on demand. You have a lot of limitations when it comes to print on demand, and to be quite honest, some quality control issues. The whole print on demand process is mostly hands off. And so there are issues that I've seen, not very often, but I have seen some issues with books being sent to customers with the cover being the right book they ordered, but the whole book block, all the interior pages of the book belong to another book. Or maybe that book block is bound inside the cover upside down. Or maybe there are some pages from other books that are inserted within that book block, or different things like that. It happens occasionally, and I see some complaints about it, but given the sheer quantity of books that are printed through Amazon KDP and these other platforms, I would think it's still pretty minimal, the amount of issues that come up. It's a process, it's a system, and there aren't too many mistakes in that system. Yes, mistakes can happen. By the way, mistakes can happen with offset printing too. You just hear about it a lot more with the print on demand platforms that are out there. But saying all that, quality, I'm going to give it a win for offset printing. I'm going to put offset printing over here, Amazon KDP, and print on demand services over here. So this is a win for offset printing. You get a much better quality. Let's move on to the second variable, which is quantity. For offset printing, in order to get your cost of goods or your cost per unit low enough to really have a resale worth getting any profits off of, you have to print in the thousands. Now, some people will say, select a minimum of 500 books. I like to say go with a minimum of 1,000 books. Now, there are a lot of authors who are getting several thousands of books at one time. I'm I'm small potatoes. I go with 1,000. My one order for 2,000 so far. I'm not really getting much more than that at a time. And if you're a new author, you may not be either, depending on how large your audience is, and how many followers you have. So I would say a minimum of 1,000 books, and that order is paid all at once. So it's a one-time fee, you might say, that you have to pay up front. Um, Whereas print on demand, by definition, it is print on demand. As your customer places the order, the book is then printed and shipped to them. And so there are no minimums. You're not placing an order for large quantities ahead of time. So that's the difference between quantity. The print on demand service wins as far as quantity goes because you don't have to buy thousands of copies at one time. Now, the third variable is cost per unit. And I'm going to give you a couple of different cost variables to look at. There's the cost per unit, and then there's the cost up front. So as far as the cost per unit goes, if you're ordering thousands of books at one time, it gets the cost really low per unit. So you may only be paying $1 or $2 or maybe a little bit more per book, which then allows you to have a larger return on investment per book. The cost per unit for print on demand, on the other hand, can be a lot higher. And I'm not going to give you direct numbers because it really just depends on how many books you're ordering offset versus what your retail price is in print on demand. Even that can adjust how much you're spending per book, and it's different between KDP and ingramspark and all those. So I'm not going to give you dollar amounts or any sort of currency amounts here. Just know that cost per unit is much lower for offset printing. So I'm going to add that to the offset printing category as a win. And then you have the upfront costs, number 4. Now, with offset printing, like I said, you have to pay for everything in advance, and that costs thousands of dollars in US currency. The reason for that cost is it's a much bigger process. Like they have to form these plates that are used to print the pages. It's not digital. It's a much heavier process in the beginning stages, and because of that, you have to pay for this huge quantity of books. And so the upfront cost is in the thousands, whereas print on demand, Amazon KDP, ingramspark, there really are no upfront costs as far as listing the book and setting up your account. So that's another win for print on demand. Let's go to number 5, which is mistakes. I already talked about the quality control issues. I'm talking about your mistakes, like if you find typos or editing mistakes within your manuscript. What is it like to correct those? Well, if you're having 1,000 books printed in offset printing, you're not going to go through every book and use your whiteout and write in the correct words. So if you need to fix those books or if you need to reprint those books, of course, that is a lot of money up front. You have to, go through the whole process of printing those books again if you decide to do that. Most people, they may just decide, okay, this one mistake in my byline is, or in my bio is maybe not so necessary to fix on this print run, and so then you can fix it on the next print run. That's how most people would deal with it. But then when it comes to print on demand, you're just uploading these PDFs to the platform that you're using, and those PDFs can be replaced at will. So as long as you have an updated PDF with all of your corrections, you can upload that, and that new PDF will be used for future orders. So it's a pretty much a free way to fix those mistakes. It's also fairly easy. So that's another win for print on demand. Now, we talked about quantity and we talked about the cost of printing. Now let's talk about return on investment. What is your ROI for offset printing versus print on demand? Now, because the cost is much lower per unit for offset printing, theoretically you can have a much higher ROI. Your profit may be per unit may be much higher, but that's only if you sell all of your books. Now let's say you printed 1,000 books, but you only sold 500, and the last half of your order is just sitting in your basement somewhere, not selling, you're not doing anything with it, then your return on investment is really cut in half. And so it may not be worth it in the end. So to get a good return on investment with offset printing, you have to be sure that you can sell the books that you order. If you order 5,000 books, you better be ready to sell 5,000 books. And hopefully you can place another order. But if you order 5,000 books and they're just sitting in your basement for years on end, that's more of a cost than you should really take on. Whereas print on demand, the return on investment for each book is actually quite low. So it might be less than 25% of the retail value of the book, whereas offset printing, you may be earning 50 to 75% of the retail value of the book as a profit per book. So the ROI is much better for offset printing. I'm giving it to the offset category here, but of course, like I said, that's only if you sell your books. Now, the next variable that we're going to look at, I believe this is number 6, is time. How long does it take to have your books printed and shipped? For offset printing, especially if you're printing overseas, it can actually take months for those books to arrive. It takes a few weeks to have them set up the files, maybe send you a hard copy to proof, or maybe a soft proof to check out. It takes a couple of weeks or a few weeks to actually print the books. The long part of that process is actually shipping it by container overseas back to you wherever you live, and having it shipped then to your home. So it can take months to receive your books. If you are printing using print on demand, it actually takes days. So the customer orders the book, the platform prints and binds the book, and then ships it out to them within a matter of sometimes hours, and they get their book in their hands within just a few days. So obviously a huge difference in time there for the delivery of the books. And so I want to give this variable to print on demand as the winner there. Number 7 is the different options that you're given. So I've already talked a little bit about this in the beginning. So for offset printing, you're given a lot more options. In fact, anything you can think of, it can be done in offset printing, basically. When it comes to printing books, you're given a lot of different options for types of paper you use, weights of paper, if it's going to be ecological paper or what have you. There are so many different options there. You can also choose what kind of ink you use, whether it's process ink like CMYK or you use spot ink like Pantone color or something like that, which can get more expensive. You can also use, different environmental friendly ink in your book, different things like that. But you also have different options such as the trim size of your book and how you want it bound and what kind of spine you're going to use. Like, is it just going to be a hardcover book with a typical spine, or is it going to have a spiral bound book? Different options there that you can have. You can also do a lot of different effects to the cover. So you can have foil, and if you walk through any bookstore or library and look at different covers, you'll see what I mean. Like, you can have foil effects, you can have spot UV, where basically if you have like a matte cover, there might be certain spots on the cover that look glossy, and that's called spot UV. You could have embossing or debossing. Your end sheets can be printed instead of plain white like you would get with print on demand. I think I already mentioned trim size. There's all kinds of different trim sizes that you can do. Pretty much any size book you want, you can print through offset printing. Print on demand, you're only given a few options for the type of paper you can choose, and your trim sizes are very limited as well. Now there are some options and probably enough to get by with, but if you want larger books like 10-inch by 10-inch books or something like that for children's books, you're not going to get that with print on demand. So there are a lot of different variables, different options available for your book through offset printing that you don't get through print on demand. So I'm going to give that category to the offset column. Now let's look at number 9, which is inventory. Because with offset printing, you're printing in large quantities, and most likely you're going to have those books shipped to your home. So it's your responsibility to manage that inventory. You need a place to store the inventory. You need an area that is climate controlled. You can't just stuff them in a shed outside or in your garage where there's moisture or humidity. You have to have a climate controlled area that you can store many boxes of books as you sell them out. You also have the responsibility of shipping them to your customers or to retailers or whoever is buying your books. And so the whole process of shipping is your responsibility. Now, you can pay a fee to have the books shipped to a warehouse or a company, a business that handles warehousing and fulfillment for you. There are services available for that. Like I said, for a fee, you pay a monthly fee, and then you probably also pay a certain fee for each order that is placed for your book. And so if you have that in your budget and you're able to afford it, that might be a good choice for you. Now, with print on demand, there is no inventory. The Amazon warehouse will take the order, they'll print the book, and they'll ship it out. There's no inventory sitting anywhere unless you order a select number of books from Amazon yourself as the author, and you are, maybe you order 100 or 50 books from them to sell at an event or something like that. But you're not going to have thousands of books sitting anywhere. So there is no inventory responsibility. There's no warehousing or fulfillment responsibility when it comes to print on demand. So that's another win for print on demand. Now, while we're at it, let's talk about fulfillment, because if you have all of your books in your home and you are receiving orders from all over the world, those shipping costs are going to be tremendous. Now, hopefully, you're passing those costs on to your customer, but to ship a book from the US to some other country or continent, it could cost, I don't know, $20, $25 maybe to do that. Whereas for Amazon KDP and ingramspark, they have printing facilities and warehouses worldwide. And so if someone in Australia buys your book, it's printed there in Australia and shipped to their home. And so the cost of the fulfillment is much, much less, both for you and for the customer. And usually that cost is sort of absorbed in the costs that Amazon takes out of the purchase of the book. So there you have it. There's 10 different variables to think about when you're deciding between offset printing and print on demand. Now, can I give you a little bit of advice? You don't have to choose. There's going to be a lot of people out there who will try to convince you one way or another. They will say you have to use print on demand because it is the easiest and most author friendly process out there and anyone can do it. You're also going to see indie authors out there who will say the only way to publish your book is through offset printing because it gives you the highest profit per book, your highest ROI. Let me tell you, friend, the choice is yours. Don't let anyone else convince you of how you should handle your business. This is your business, and you need to decide what your business plan is. Do you have the ability to commit the funds necessary to have a large order placed with an offset printer and then have that large order stored in your home or pay someone to warehouse and fulfill your orders for you? Do you have the time that it takes to have those books printed and shipped to you and to do the shipping yourself when orders are placed from your customers? How do you plan to sell these books? Is it purely online? Are you only using Amazon or other websites to sell your book? Or do you plan to do in-person events like for children's book authors that might be school visits or vendor booth events, different conferences, things like that? If that's the case, you're probably going to want a large quantity of books on hand to take these different events. So there's a lot of different things to think about with your business plan. And like I said, the choice is yours, but you don't really have to choose this or that. You can do both, and you can have offset printed books that are premium quality that you can sell at your in-person events and lists online, by the way, for a much better profit per unit. And you can use print on demand services to make it easier and more available for other customers throughout the world, that they can have access to your books within days and not wait for you to ship your book from your home country to wherever they live. And so there are so many different options available for you, so many different ways you can go with this. I just want to encourage you to really take a look at your business plan and decide how you want to run your business as an indie author. Now, if you want help with this, my book, The Indie Author's Dozen, is going to help you through this whole process. I want to help you create not only uplifting and cherish books, but successful books. I want you to be successful as an indie author. And through this book, I'm going to show you how you can put together your self-publishing team, which includes your printer. So go to indieauthorsdozen.com right now, access the introduction chapter, and you will just sort of be introduced to the book. So if you like this kind of content and you found it helpful, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment below. Are you wanting to print offset? Are you wanting to print on demand? Or are you going to go the hybrid approach and use both? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to catch this next video that I'm going to post up, which is an interview with my printer in Lithuania. And I think with this interview, there'll be a lot of questions answered that you may have.